Hey guys, I'm recording live this fine Thursday evening from Santa Cruz. Anna here. So we're gonna do our virtual paint night tonight. Woo! And we're gonna paint this fun festive piece. Can decorate for the upcoming holiday. You know, Thanksgiving is probably gonna look kind of different for all of us this year. What with everything that's going on. But at least we can enjoy painting tonight and hopefully some good food next week. So I see some people are tuning in. We'll wait a couple of minutes for everyone to kind of gather in case anyone's running late or anything. But yeah, in the meantime, if you're here, feel free to use the little chat section. I'm going to read all the comments. And also if you have any questions along the way, you can use that too. But yeah, you can introduce yourself, let me know where you're watching from, if you've ever painted before, if you've followed my classes before, or if you're new to me. And I'll introduce myself for those of you who might not know me. My name is Anna, and I live in Santa Cruz, California. Baby crying in the background. Distracted. Okay, anyway. So yeah, I live in Santa Cruz, California. I've been doing art pretty much my whole life, painting and other arts and crafts. I kind of dabbled in doing it professionally for about 6 years, going on 7 years, I guess. But yeah, I used to love teaching these classes in person before this year. But it's been cool to be able to connect virtually, at least. It's different. Yeah, and if you guys are just tuning in, feel free to say hello in the comments, and then we'll get started shortly once everyone kind of gathers here. And you guys can also let me know if you're using, or what medium you're using. I'm going to be demonstrating in acrylics, so most of my techniques and everything are going to be kind of specific to that medium. But if you are working with watercolor or colored pencil or anything like that, you can let me know and I can kind of adapt my instruction to help everybody. Okay, we've got some people chiming in. Gabby from Watsonville and Marina from SoCal. And Gabby's sister from Chicago is trying to join in. Cool. Hopefully she can get on here. And Kim from SoCal, welcome. Oh, does anyone else have issues hearing me? Let me know. Oh, you know, I always forget my microphone for these things. That's what it is. Okay, check 1, 2. This should be a little bit better. I always forget for the Zoom videos I don't use my microphone and it's fine, but for the Facebook ones, for some reason it records a little quieter, maybe because I'm standing farther away. Okay, so we got a couple more. Marina, are you asking about this one behind me or that one behind me or that one? And Debbie from Aptos, nearby. Susan all the way from North Carolina. Cool. I'm glad you guys are all here. Okay, I see we got a pretty good group. I'll wait a couple more minutes and then we can get going. Oh, the harvest one we're painting tonight. I painted it last year for a paint night event, actually, so just kind of reusing it this year again. But yeah, I like this little piece with the wreath and little pumpkin. The green pumpkin was fun. I actually got a green pumpkin from my pumpkin patch visit a couple of weeks ago. It looks just like this. I like it. But if you want to paint an orange one or a pink one or a purple one, you can get creative too. Oh, and all of them. Yeah, this one I think I painted, don't know, it's not finished yet, maybe like a year ago. Started a long time ago. That one I did last summer, I think. Anyway. All right, so we've got some more people tuning in. So if you're just joining, feel free to use the comment section to introduce yourself and read through. Everyone is who's here. We've got people from all over. Hamij from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Cool. It's the cool thing about this virtual thing is that you get people from all over the place. That's awesome. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. And as always, use the comments to let me know if you have any questions or comments or anything, and I will be reading them as we go. So if you haven't met me, my name is Anna. I live in Santa Cruz. I'm an artist, mostly inspired by the ocean and nature, but it's fun to throw in some little festive pieces here and there sometimes too. And so if you have not done something like this before, like a paint night kind of style class, basically I'm going to go through a step-by-step process so we can complete the painting of the day, which is going to be this seasonal inspired piece tonight. And you can use any media you have. I know we're all kind of working with what we have at home, so all of our supplies are going to be a little bit different. So you can let me know if you're using something different than acrylic paints, and I can kind of adapt my instruction to suit what you need. If you're not doing acrylics, I think the main difference is going to be you want to kind of map out your design first and then do the background around it. Like with watercolor, you can't really layer like you can with acrylics and color pencil, stuff like that. It's just that's the main difference. But the way we're going to do this piece is we're going to do the background first, let it dry, and then kind of layer over top with our main design. So yeah, I'll go through step by step. It's super beginner friendly. You can get as creative as you want. Mix up the composition or the colors or whatever. Feel free to take your own spin on it. I always love seeing the paintings at the end because they all turn out completely different. That's kind of like the best part about this. We all have our own creative style too, even if we're kind of new to painting or art or whatever. So supplies you're going to need today, something to paint on. So I'm just working on a 16 by 20 inch stretched canvas, so you can use a canvas board. You can use paper, ideally something heavier like a mixed media or watercolor paper that will hold our medium pretty well. Printer paper tends to get kind of crumbled under any kind of moisture, so be careful with that. And then whatever medium you're using, you want to have different colors. So in this piece, I used white and brown for the background. So I got my jugs of paint back here. And I just kind of set up my palette with the background colors right now. So I've got brown, white, magenta, and yellow. Or if you have different shades of brown, you can do that too. Like a reddish brown would be nice, like a sienna, something like that. So yeah, either like two browns or a couple of warm hues like pink, red. We'll do a little bit of mixing for the background just to get some variation. And then some other colors you want to have handy. The primaries, I always use those. So like a dark blue, yellow, magenta, or red. And then if you have a green, that'll come in handy too. And we already know we need the brown. And any other fun colors, like I have some little purple and orange details in there, which we can mix, but it's easier also just to get it from the tube. And then we need some paintbrushes. So I've got several different sizes. I like to have a larger like 1 inch flat brush to get the background. So any kind of larger brush will work because we all probably have different supplies. And then I like to have kind of like a medium brush for some details and then a smaller brush for the very fine details at the very end. So just a little bit of a variety. You don't need a huge quiver of brushes, just a handful of different sizes will do to get you in all the different sections that we're working in, and some water to keep your brushes in. So with acrylic paints, you want to keep your brushes in the water while you're painting. because the paint can dry out really quickly. Even if you think you rinsed it really well, it can dry out really fast, and then it's really hard to clean your brushes after that. So we just keep them in water and then give them a really good cleaning with a little soap and water after you're finished with your painting session. And also something to put your paint on. Hopefully you guys are all set up already, and like a rag or paper towels to dry your brush on so we don't get too much water on there. Okay, any questions so far? I'm going to read through the comments here. Cool, looks like we're all set. You guys are ready to begin? I can hear your excitement. Okay, so I'm going to switch around here so you guys can see a little sample painting back here to refer to. Kind of see it. If anyone wants me to like pull that out at any point to refer to, you can let me know. But we are going to start with our larger brush with the background. Going to flip vertical. Of course, you can do it any orientation you want, vertical or horizontal. And so for our background, we're just going to use really big strokes and a lot of paint and do a little bit of blending, but not too much so it's not all one color, and we get a little bit of like texture and color variation in there. Okay, so I'm going to start by mixing a light brown so it can get a little bit of white, and just mix it on your plate. Mix it up with your brown like so. So going for kind of like pastel-ish colors. And then I just like take a big old scoop of paint and then just kind of smear it on here and spread it around with really long vertical brush strokes. So the effect I kind of went with on here is kind of like a wood grain pattern. And then we can play around with little variations. So my palettes always get like super messy because I'm just mixing up my colors all willy-nilly. We all have like different styles of mixing. I'm sure you might be a little bit neater than me. But then I might take a little bit of like pink in there and a little bit of yellow, or get a different brown. So that makes it a little bit brighter than the brown I had before. And same thing, I'll just kind of lay that down next to it and do those long strokes again. And then sometimes you can just take a little bit of white by itself and just kind of blend that in. This is a great way to warm up into your painting doing backgrounds like this, because you're really using your whole arm, and it's not super critical or anything what it looks like either, because it's just a background, not super technical. But yeah, we'll just go along with this method until we fill in the whole canvas and the whole background, and then when that's done, we'll let it dry. And yeah, just keep kind of alternating between your different color combinations. And I am using a lot of white in each color, so we're not getting super dark colors at any point. Keeping it nice and light and bright. But as always, you can totally get creative. You can do a different color background, different technique. Okay, so just blending enough so that the colors mix a little bit into each other, but not so much that it turns flat. So you can still see like a lot of texture in there. See that? See the brush strokes? Gwen is here. Hi, Gwen. Only downside of Facebook is I can't see your guys' faces and your paintings as we go. Okay, moving on to the other side of my canvas. Just doing those long strokes, vertical. Starting to look like something. Sometimes you might notice if you do shorter strokes, you'll kind of lift up the paint a little bit and get a white line where you put the paintbrush down. If that happens, you just want to do long brush strokes, like from the top edge to the bottom edge of your canvas all the way across. So when you start on the edge, you're not really going to lift up the paint so much. So just a little bit of troubleshooting, and let me know if you guys have any questions or need help or guidance. I am here to help you. Really kind of embracing any imperfections and spontaneous things that the paint might do in this background part. And then once you have gone through your whole canvas, then you can kind of go back in and see if you missed any spots, like around the edges. You can see if there's any like white holes of the canvas showing through. Then you can put a little more paint down on there. And also you can paint the edges of your canvas if it's wrapped around the sides. Then it looks a little bit nicer once it's hanging if you're not framing it. Another thing you can play around with if your paint is starting to dry and you're still kind of brushing over is you can do some dry brushing, which creates a kind of like a rough rustic texture, which would totally work with this piece. So I just got a couple of spots and had that happen accidentally, which reminded me of this technique. But basically for dry brushing, if your canvas is dry, you can get a little bit of paint, not too much. That's kind of the idea, is your brush is kind of dry. So very minimal paint on it, and then you just kind of brush it on and it'll sit on top of the dry paint and just create a different texture. Just something to play around with if you would like to. And if your paint is drying, over here it's like getting a lot colder now, so the paint dries very slowly, which is kind of nice. Especially with acrylics, they tend to dry really fast, so they're only workable for so long. Let me know how you guys are doing. we've got a few more people tuned in. If you're hopping on late, feel free to introduce yourself in the comments section, reading those as we go. And let me know if you have any questions or want me to go through what we've done so far. We just started on the background. And yeah, I'll give you guys a few minutes to finish up with that, and then we can take like a little intermission to let our backgrounds dry. And also if you're like working on it too much, you might want to stop just to give it some time to dry, because I know sometimes it's easy to kind of get sucked in the backgrounds and just keep working on them, but then we move on to the next step and they haven't dried yet. So make sure you give yourself some time for the painting to dry. And in the meantime, you can put more paint on your palette, some other colors. Like I just started with my background colors, but I might need a little bit more white already, and get some greens and blues. That's about all. So this pumpkin down here, I made this really cool minty green color, and the colors I used for that were green and turquoise. It makes a really cool mix. So if you have those, you can get a similar color. And again, feel free to make this your own too. So you can change the color of the pumpkin. You can do different flowers. If you want to take a minute to look up any inspiration or anything, feel free. Or just follow along with my instruction if you like the piece as it is. And we haven't washed our brushes yet, so if you're done with your background, you can just put it in your jar of water so the paint doesn't dry out on them. And then to clean your brushes, I'll just kind of demonstrate now in case you're not familiar. You just kind of swish the brush around and slam the bristles on the bottom to really agitate that paint off. And when you're ready to start painting again, you just want to make sure you get all the water off so it doesn't drip down your canvas. That's kind of hard to fix. Okay, so I'll leave that there for now and get some more paint. Another quick tip when you're arranging your colors on your palette, I like to arrange them so that they're kind of in the order of mixing, or kind of like the color wheel. So next to my brown, I put the pink and yellow because they're kind of similar hues on the warmer side. And then next to the yellow, I'll put the green because that's kind of the next color, and then next to that, I'll go with the blues. So yeah, just arrange it in the color wheel so it's easy to mix. And if you need another palette to mix on too, that's handy sometimes too, especially if you kind of spread out with your paint and don't have any clean areas. I always try to find like the tiniest corners when I get filled up, like, I'll work in this little corner that's still dry and clean and mix my color in there and do what I need to do. Debbie asked if I added green to my background. No, I did not. It does look a little green. I think just my brown has kind of a greenish hue, so that's why I mixed it up with a little bit of the pink and yellow too, to make it a little warmer. And all pigments are kind of different. Like this brown is kind of on the greener side for some reason, but you might get the same shade of brown from another paint brand and it'll look different. So yeah, you don't have to get too specific with the colors or anything. Or if you like the look of green, you can do that too. But I just kept it kind of earthy hues. Okay. Yeah, I see some more people are tuning in right now. Welcome everyone. We are doing our virtual paint night. Just got started with the backgrounds. are we all doing? Desiree just commented that she says hello from Denair. Mom and daughter paint night. Awesome. I love that. Yay, glad you guys are all here. It's a fun pandemic activity. Okay, my canvas is still a little bit wet, so I'll give it a few more minutes to dry out. In the meantime, I'll do a little commercial break. So I know we've got a few of my patrons watching today. So I do these virtual paint nights twice monthly on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription. So it's only $10 a month, and you get the 2 virtual paint nights plus a recorded video lesson. So if you really want to get into painting and creative practice a little bit more, you might want to check that out. It's called the Paint Along Club. And it's a lot of fun. We do it over Zoom, so kind of like get to know each other. It's a pretty cool little community, the same group every Friday. And we're actually having a class tomorrow night. It's going to be in watercolor, and we're going to do like a little moonscape, a moon with some trees and mountains and whatnot. So it's a good time and worth checking out. And the link for that is Patreon, patreon.com/followthesunart. And then otherwise, you can always check out my website, followthesunart.com. I have a lot of information on there. And if you're looking to gather your own group, either like a work thing or family, if you're not gathering in person, it's a fun activity. I do offer private paint nights as well over Zoom. So let me know if you have any questions about any of that. And Gwen says she loves the Paint Along Club. It's so fun and relaxing. So good. I love hearing what you guys get out of it. It's the best. Thanks for the link, Marina. Could post it again later too. How are you guys all doing with the backgrounds? Do you need another minute or two? Marina and Gwen, the best supporters. Oh yeah, and the other link Marina just posted is the link to our Facebook group, Follow the Sun Art Club. So when you're finished your paintings, that's kind of where we post all our finished pieces at the end, so you can see what everybody else did. And I post the recordings on there as well as upcoming classes that I'm going to be doing. So it's a good way to stay in touch. And there's a lot of ways to stay in touch too. You can follow me on Facebook. You can join my email list. Try to make it super easy for all of you. Leslie, hello, welcome. Yeah, the Zoom format is really nice because we can actually give feedback as we work. Almost like real life. So we might be able to start with some of the smaller details if you guys are ready. Feel free to give like a little thumbs up or something and let me know if you're ready, or if you need more time, you can let me know too. You can also wait. And I see another wave of people tuning in. Hello, everyone. We're doing virtual paint night here. Hope you guys have your art supplies and are ready to start. Cool. Okay, Gabby says she's ready. Okay, so I think we can start with some of the smaller details, and that'll give our backgrounds even a little bit more time to dry, because you can kind of strategize, you know, just so we keep our brushes moving. Like we can start with the details of the stems because those are smaller and they're kind of like a similar color to the background too, so it's okay if there's a little bit of blending if the background's not totally dry. And then some of the other things we can wait a little bit longer, like the pumpkin and the flowers. We want our canvas to be a little bit more dry, but we can start kind of mapping out our little wreath out there. And Debbie, like I was just saying, it's okay if it's a little wet. And it'll dry as we start working on the smaller things. So for the little stem and leaves, I'm going to grab a smaller brush, kind of dry it out if it was in the water. And I'm just going to kind of freehand this. So this is the part, if you were doing a different media, you would want to kind of sketch it out first. But yeah, otherwise you can just kind of freehand it. It's not a big deal if it's not perfect. We're not striving for perfection. It's more about the process and enjoying it and kind of going with the flow and embracing all the little accidents and mistakes as we go along. Yeah, none of these shapes are like super critical. If you want, we can kind of sketch out our pumpkin on the bottom just so we know where that's going to be. So you can either do like a simple circle, or you can do like a nice heirloom squash kind of style where it's like kind of rounded on the sides and then kind of squishes in the middle and flattens out on the bottom as well. Those are my favorite kind of pumpkins. All the warty ones and interesting shaped ones, different colors. So yeah, just sketching with my brown paint, and it's kind of mixing in, so it's the lines are a little bit lost, I guess. And then you can make like a curvy stem up here. Cool. And then coming out from this side of the pumpkin, we're going to make a line kind of arcing up this way. You can start from the bottom or the top, whatever feels easier for you. I find like the downward strokes are sometimes a little bit easier, but doesn't really matter too much. And then same thing on the other side. We'll just kind of continue this oval and connect it to the other side of the pumpkin so it kind of falls behind that. There we kind of have everything mapped out. And then if you lost your line a lot, if it blended in with the background too much, you can kind of go over again and clean it up. Also take a step back and see if you like what you did. Maybe you need to adjust a little. Like I might bring this line in a little bit more. Troubleshooting as we go. If you need to erase, you can grab your big brush again without any paint and just kind of blend it in if your paint is still wet. Voila. So just kind of going in with some more brown paint to define that stem a little bit more. Okay, so just darken that line a little bit with my brown paint, and then we can make the little branchy things coming off of that oval. So you'll see I'll have both little leaves coming off and then these little stems that have these funny little flowers on the ends, little purple ones and little red ones. So you can get creative and just kind of doodle them on however you see fit. But we'll just start with this since we're already working with this color, kind of easy. And then just kind of make little branches coming off. If you want to like break some of them up into 3 like that at the end, kind of branch out. That can be one of our little motifs. And then some of them can also be straight. And just kind of alternating sides off of that center line. These areas with really thick paint that it just kind of blends in and gets lost. Just needs a little more time to dry. Okay, so when I was going on this side, I was kind of angling them up, and then on the other side, after I get to the top, then I'll kind of start from the bottom here again and angle them up. So there's like a little switch over here where on this side they're kind of branching upward this way, and then it switches to where we just ended over there, if that makes sense. A little switch over. Okay, so I think we can leave it there for another couple minutes and let that dry out. My background is still really wet. I don't know about you guys. I really laid on that paint pretty heavy, so it's taken a minute. And plus I'm in my little garage studio. It's really cold in here. That's why I'm so bundled up. Need to get a little heater in here for the winter. Get that glare off. Okay, so our next little step, we can do another smaller detail. We can start with the dot work on those little branchy flowers that we just added in, because that'll be pretty easy since it's so focused. If our background is still wet, you can still kind of keep the paint on top of there since you're not really brushing it in. And hopefully when we're done with that, it'll be dry enough to do the leaves and the flowers and the pumpkin, the larger elements. Marina just asked if the hairdryer works for acrylics. Yes, it does. So if you have a hairdryer or a heat gun, you can use that to speed up the process a little bit. Just be careful about getting too close to the paint so it doesn't burn it. But yeah, we can work with it a little bit wet too, that's fine. You can kind of see where you are. All of our paint is probably acting differently depending on our environment and all of that. But yeah, thanks for the question. That's a good tip. Okay, so the little branchy flowers I made in my painting are orange and purple. So if you have orange or purple paint, you can use that, or you can use different colors, whatever your favorite colors are, or you can mix your colors too. So if you have yellow and magenta, you can mix up a nice orange. I always like to add a little bit of white to it too, just to give it some opacity. Otherwise, the paint is kind of translucent sometimes on its own, so it'll show the colors underneath and won't be too vibrant. But the white really gives it that pop. That makes it stand out. Okay, so got a pretty nice orange there, mixing my magenta, yellow, and a little bit of white. And then I'm still working with my little round detail brush and just scooping up like a pretty good amount of paint on here. And then these little trio branches, I'll just do a little dot on the end of each one. 3 little dots and just kind of go along. If you use the paint pretty heavy, then it'll still sit on top of the wet paint. You don't really need to brush it in, just do little dots. And once you've got all of the first ones in one color, then we can switch colors just to have a little variation. So the other ones I made are little bunches of purple dots. So I'm going to rinse my brush, but still use the little one. And then purple is just going to be magenta and blue. And again, I'll just do a little bit of white. That looks like a pretty nice purple. And just do kind of like a stippling technique on the end of those single branches. And stippling is when you're just kind of dabbing your brush, making little dots. So got our little flowers in. If you're still working on any other areas, feel free to take your time with it. I might actually do my little heat gun to speed up my process because my paint is drying very slowly today. So it'll be a little noisy for a second. Looking a little drier. Let's see, what should we work on next? We just have to do the leaves, the pumpkin, and the little flowers. Probably do the little flowers last. So maybe it's a good time to do our pumpkins. So if you guys want to make the pumpkin the same color as me, you can follow along. Otherwise, you can use your orange or any other colors. Get creative. I love seeing what you guys come up with. But I made this cool color using my green and turquoise. So just kind of mix those two together with a little bit of white, as I said. It makes this really cool color. I love it. Okay, and I'm just gonna kind of fill my pumpkin in here with that initial color, and then we'll do a little bit of blending and shading from there. And my background is mostly dry, but I still have a couple of wet spots where the paint was really heavy. But you can just kind of blend it in if you have that issue. So if it starts to lift up like that, kind of blend in. Just get some more of your green color and then just kind of spread it around. And it'll lighten the shape a little bit, but that's totally fine. I'm using my medium brush for this. I'm just kind of filling it in and trying to follow the shape of the pumpkin. So, you know, they have those ridges going up and down. I'm trying to keep my strokes as long as I can on the longer side, from like the edge of the shape to the edge of the shape, similar to how we did the background, just to keep those funky little lines from forming. And Debbie, you wanted a closer look at the flowers? I'll show you the sample painting so you can see. So they're super simple. So the first ones I did, they're just like a single stem and it branches into three with little orange dots on the end. And then the other ones are just a straight line with a bunch of purple dots on the end. Hope that helps. Okay, and if you're doing the pumpkin with me, so we just filled it in with our main color, our base color. So now we can do a little bit of shading. So I'm gonna, you don't have to rinse your brush, but I want to get like any excess paint off. And then you can grab a little bit of white and we'll just go right on top of that wet paint with some highlights. So kind of starting here and edging it down, but not all the way down. Just kind of lighten that edge there. So the nice thing about painting on the wet paint is the colors will blend in. You'll get like nice, smooth, soft transitions. And then just kind of start from that center line and curve down. Just leave a little space of green and make another line right there. And then same thing on the other side. We're making those ridges that are very characteristic of pumpkins. Okay, let me know if you want me to go over that again or have any questions about that little technique. But just kind of following the curve, and then when they meet in the middle, you can either like straighten them out a little bit or just make one curve on one side, one on the other side. Very simple. Leave a little space of green in between each highlight. And it doesn't matter what color you're doing the pumpkin, you just use white to do that highlight and detail. And then I'm going to rinse my brush. Whenever you get here, you can wash your brush and grab some brown paint and just fill in your little stem over here. You can give it a little curlicue and any other little doodads you want. Make it look fun. Can also create a little texture in the stem by doing short strokes, even with like a smaller brush, or I just use my flat brush, the like skinny way to make little lines and give it kind of like a textured effect, like the wood would look like. Can even add a little bit of white in there to increase that texture. Little details. Then we can also use that brown, create a little shadow under the pumpkin too. And another combination I like to do pretty often is brown with a little bit of blue. It just makes the brown a little bit darker. So I don't know if you guys can see that. If you just take a little bit of brown, add a little bit of blue to it, or even a little bit of pink if it's looking kind of green and funky. That gives you like a slightly darker version of the brown. Okay, or you could just use brown or just blue. And then I'll kind of go along here with a thinner line at the bottom. Do a little outline. And then follow those white lines and kind of taper off. So starting at the bottom and then kind of tapering off into that white ridge we painted initially. And we can also touch up this outline at the end if we need to. Okay, so there's our little pumpkin. Can't wait to see all of your paintings when we're finished. Let me know if you guys have any questions or want me to go over anything again. Happy to do so. But yeah, we can wait a minute and then we'll move on to our little leaves and other flowers. More flowers. Hi Maricela, I see your comment here. As soon as I'm finished the class, the recording is going to stay on my Facebook page indefinitely, so you can watch it anytime from the beginning. So we're pretty far in now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on the leaves. And again, if you're working on anything else, take your time. You can always catch up when you are ready, and rewatch the video too if you need even more time. So I'm going to do a little bit more mixing and get kind of a brighter green for the leaves. So I'm just getting my green with a little bit of yellow so you can see the difference between that and what I had for the pumpkin. A little more on the green side, kind of how my palette always ends up looking with all these unique little color blends. It's like a work of art on its own. Also just a little bit of white to brighten it up. Take a scoop and mix it in. Okay, and I'm using my medium brush. You can either use a flat brush or a round brush for these leafy parts. And so these leaves, I'm going to show you a fun little technique. So you want to try to just get each leaf in one stroke. And it's all about the pressure you apply to your brush. So when you apply a lot of pressure to your brush, you're going to get a thicker line. And if you lighten your pressure, then you'll get a thinner line. So by adjusting that as we do our stroke, you can get these kind of pointy leaf shapes. Pretty simple. You can also practice on like a scrap sheet of paper or something if you are nervous about it before you start. But anyway, this is how it goes. So I'll start at the base of that center stem and then just kind of press down hard with my brush and then just taper off and leave it. And I'll just go along alternating sides along that whole oval line. You might overlap a little bit with your little flowery things, and you just kind of want to like tuck them in between the little branching flowers, or you can paint over them a little bit. It's like a little bit of overlapping, but not too much. Just kind of squeeze them in wherever they seem to fit. If you need me to go over that again, it's basically just like a lot of pressure at the beginning, so press your brush all the way down so those bristles kind of spread out and make a wide line, and then you just kind of lighten your pressure as you get to the edge. Sometimes it might take a couple of strokes to get it, so just take your time with it. And then kind of the same concept as earlier. So the leaves are kind of angling up from the bottom. So we'll kind of wrap around to the top, and when it starts to curve over and the little flower branches are going the other way, then we can start from the bottom here again and angle up, and then we'll just have like kind of a intersection there at the end. It's starting to look like a painting. Hopefully for all of you too. Yay. I have such a huge collection of these sample paintings now, but I do like rotate them in my house too for the season. So I still have some summery ones up that we did a few months ago. A Monstera leaf and a little beach sunset. But I'm excited to hang this up for the next week or so. And then I do have another free virtual paint night scheduled next month. It's going to be my festive fish piece. Sometimes I call it funky fish, but it's just a bunch of fish kind of in Christmassy colors. If you have like silver or gold paint, you can join in with that, and it makes like some sparkly fun. But just kind of like interweaving ocean and holidays together. I like kind of incorporating those ideas, since a lot of my own work is inspired by nature and marine life and everything. Like how can I tie it in with the seasonal motifs? It's a fun little challenge for me. But yeah, the festive fish is what we're going to be painting next month for our Facebook Live paint night. And if you guys ever have any requests, you can let me know too. I'm always coming up with new pieces. Maple, it's going to be with acrylic paint as well, but you can totally do it in watercolor. Yeah. Or any other media. Colored pencil, crayon, or just a pen and paper. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and move into the little sunflowers. That's our last detail on our painting. So this might take a little while because it's gonna be kind of tricky to cover up the background and everything that we did underneath so far. But one thing I've found to work is if we do white first and kind of outline our flowers, let it dry, and then go over with our color, like the yellow leaves, then it'll have like a base to sit on top. So we can start with a little white outline of a flower. It's going to look a little funky at first, but just kind of trust the process. And then if you're doing any other media, we're probably too far in, but hopefully you sketched up little sunflowers in the beginning and you can start working and painting them in. But anyway, okay, this might be a little tricky because we have a lot of wet paint here with all our flowers and greens. So I have two kind of big ones kind of bunched in here. So just kind of see where they fit in. If your other colors mix in a little bit, that's fine. Just kind of blend it in with the white and it'll be light enough. And then for the flower petals, it's the same thing we did for the leaves. You just kind of start with kind of heavy pressure and then taper off. Okay, so our paintings always go through these awkward stages. This is one of them. We're going to have these kind of horrible looking white flowers on our paintings. If you're working with acrylics, if you're not, you might get away with a less awkward stage. But acrylics, they tend to have like a lot of awkward stages if you use a layering technique like I do. But yeah, so we're going to paint these white flowers. Really funny looking. And I'll tuck another one in behind the pumpkin over here. See, and then I just have 3 little ones on the sides and on the top of our little oval here. And just see like wherever they seem to fit in. Remember to take a step back from your painting too. Sometimes that gives you a better idea of where you need some balance and whatnot. Variation is good, so you can make all the flowers kind of slightly different sizes, mix it up, makes it more interesting. I kind of have my bigger ones in the bottom here, and then just some little ones around the sides to mix into those other flowers we have. I'm just kind of touching up these foreground ones. I think that's a pretty good foundation for them. Okay, we'll let that layer dry a little bit before we add in more color. Get a little heat gun action to dry my painting out faster. Feel free to do so too. Alright, so next step is we can kind of fill in the brown middles of the sunflowers or daisies, whichever one you want to paint. So I'll just grab my brown paint directly and kind of fill in these little middle sections. This brown I have is really funky. It's like, it's very clear. It's really hard to get a lot of color on it. Nicole, thanks for painting. Said your kids took most of your brushes. Bummer. Yeah, hopefully you can get your brushes back and finish your painting another time. But thanks for joining in today. Yeah, so this brown I have, it's like really transparent and kind of greenish. It's a little weird to work with sometimes, doesn't do exactly what I wanted to. But if you have issues with that, you can always do a second layer and kind of solidify your colors, reinforce them with another layer. Okay, so we got all those middles painted in, and then I'm going to rinse my brush and just go over the petals with a nice yellow color or whatever color you want. Okay, so clean brush, rotate to the other part of our palette here, and I'm gonna make kind of like an orangey yellow just to warm it up a little bit. So just adding more yellow to that original orange that I mixed, and a little bit of white too. Try not to get any green in there because it's right next to it too. Okay, so got a nice bright yellow, and then I'll just go over my little petals here. It's nice to have that white as a foundation, so it kind of props up the color a little bit better. Trying to tuck some petals behind this little orange branchy thing. Again, just kind of see how it fits into your painting and other elements you have. And you can do like a little bit of overlapping too with your elements and get a little sense of depth. so got all my little flowers filled in. I think that's mostly everything. I might just go back in and get my detail brush and do a little line work, especially to bring those flowers out a little bit. I think they get a little lost in the background, but maybe a bit of an outline and touch-ups just to clean them up a little bit. And then feel free to kind of bounce around and touch up any other elements that you feel need a little bit more work in your paintings. So we can spend a few more minutes doing that. And also, if you guys have any questions or need any feedback, even though I can't really see your piece, you can tell me if you have any questions specific to any parts or want me to go over anything again. I'm happy to do so. Just feel free to type away in the little comment section and I will read it here. Okay, hope you guys are having fun so far. right, how's everyone doing over there? On the other side of this screen, out there in the world, all over the country. Let me know how you guys are doing. That's about all the instruction I have for you guys. I didn't see any more questions. So, for Angie about coming into the event. This is it. And the recording will be posted as soon as I finish here. So you guys can watch it anytime. If you came in a little bit late, that's all good. It will be here indefinitely on Facebook, and I'll post it on YouTube as well. You can share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. Also, but yeah, let me know if you have any last questions before I log off about any techniques or anything. Don't forget to sign your paintings when you're finished. You don't have to, it's not required, but nice to do. Put your name on your artwork. Be proud of your creations. I usually just do it in the little corner here with my initials because my name is very long and I don't want to write that all out. A little sun. Okay, so thank you guys so much for painting with me. Thank you, Gwen. I will see you tomorrow. Yeah, for those of you who missed my spiel about Patreon, tomorrow we have another virtual paint night on there. We're going to do a watercolor moonscape. So if you haven't heard of Patreon, it's basically like a subscription to creatives. So I have a little page on there with several different options, but the Paint Along Club is the most popular. So with that, I do 2 live Zoom paint nights like this, and I always take requests from the people, from you guys, on what you guys want to paint next, but a lot of fun subjects. So we do that twice a month, and then I do 1 recorded video as well. And all the recordings for all of those classes are posted on there. So as soon as you join on Patreon, you can access the whole library of recorded Zoom paint nights and video classes too. So if you want to get more into your creative practice, it's a good way to do it. It's, it's guided. You can put your own creative spin on it still on each piece, but it takes you through step by step with every painting, kind of like we did this one. So it's a lot of fun. Thanks again for the link, Marina, and I'll post the information on here too. And also, so you guys can share your paintings, you can either post them in a comment under this video, or you can join our Facebook group, Follow the Sun Art Club. You can find that from my page or just from using the search bar, or find the link in the comments here. You can dig for it. Yeah, it's our little community of artists, so you can share your inspiration, your finished artwork, any personal projects, anything like that. So yeah, let's Follow the Sun Art Club, and then you can also join me on Patreon for more classes. And otherwise, I have some other videos on Facebook here, and we'll be doing another Facebook Live next month with the festive fish for the next upcoming holidays. Marina and Gwen, so happy to have you guys in our little paint group. Okay, let me just check through the comments here. Gabby said the flowers were difficult, but the painting was awesome. Good. A little bit of challenge in there is always nice. But yeah, love to see your paintings when you guys are all finished. So send them over, post them up. And I think that's all I have for you guys. So I will hopefully see you soon. Thanks again for painting with me, and hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, however you're celebrating it this crazy year. Okay, thank you guys.